I'm Tim, welcome to Watch You On. Thanks for logging on. Today we are looking at a signature modern reference from a company that means the moon and the stars to me. This is the Jaeger-LeCoultre Duometre Quantième Lunaire. This is the moon phase version of the epic Duometre series that debuted in 2007. Now, my love for JLC is well known on this channel, and every once in a while I get a watch that rises above and beyond the conventional appeal of the watchmaker's watchmaker, something that is truly a historic, epic, complication, artistic piece, a reference that's a milestone either for the company or for watchmaking generally. And I have to say that this Duometre Quantième Lunaire meets all of those criteria. It's every one of those in one 42mm yellow gold package. It's also a limited edition, and I'm going to get into what makes this watch special, both as a JLC and as a piece of epic high horology generally. Now, a little bit of backstory. In 2007, JLC debuted something that no one else had done. Now, you got to realize the 2000s were the era of the big watch, the complicated watch, high horology, tourbillons on top of tourbillons on top of tourbillons on a carousel. People were doing crazy things as computer-assisted design basically pervaded the Swiss luxury watch industry and made complications that were previously impossible nearly common. So originality was at a premium. And in 2007, JLC did something no one else had done. They took two movements in one case, coupled to a single escapement, a single regulating organ, and they created the Duometre line. Now, the idea was that the original inspiration, an 1881 minute-repeating chronometer pocket watch built by LeCoultre, then LeCoultre, was the essential template for the design. Two mainspring barrels, which you can see here and here, driving two separate drivetrains, each controlling a separate aspect of the movement independently, so that the operation of one would not draw power and therefore timing precision from the other. And that was the essence of that pocket watch, but it was so complicated that with 1880s technology, JLC could only accomplish it at the prototype stage. Kind of like the original George Daniels coaxial movements, it was fine in the hands of the master and in the hands of a connoisseur collector, but mass production simply wasn't possible initially. And it's not possible now. Only a few of these are made each year, numbering in the hundreds. And this one of only 300, represents the absolute peak of JLC's watchmaking art. Because in 2010, following the success of the first variant of the Duometre, the Chronograph, JLC came back with a version dedicated not to accurate stopwatch operation in parallel with hours and minutes and seconds, but dedicated to absolute chronometric accuracy, featuring the famed foudroyant lightning seconds 1 second hand, and now a date and a northern and southern hemisphere moon phase operating in parallel with the hours, minutes, seconds, and flying seconds, each one supplied by its own mainspring barrel, powered by its own power source, 50-hour power reserve for each, with a separate gear train. The only common denominator is that escapement. Now, it's best to describe the escapement in a Duometre as sort of a traffic cop directing traffic at an intersection where the light is not working. If you can imagine a cross-pattern intersection, the cars have their own fuel, they have their own engines and their own mode of power. The policeman is not moving them, he's just directing them, giving them their cue to move in sequence, and that's what the balance is doing here, because each separate drivetrain is providing the separate motive force for its separate function, and that's the key here. That's why the operation of the calendar in the moon phase in the midst of changeover is not going to draw down the amplitude of the balance. In a conventional watch with a single mainspring barrel, having a complication engaged, whether it's a moon phase, a date change, a chronograph, at the same time as the hours, minutes, and seconds, is going to slow down both. The genius of this design is to have both powertrains operating in parallel, merely switched and regulated by that oscillator at 6 o'clock. That's the key. Neither one can slow down the other. They merely beat to the same heart. And that's the genius of JLC's engineering. But at the craft level, JLC goes one step beyond. Now, this unique example features an écrou or eggshell dial with a lot more warmth than the kind of frigid, chilly version that's almost whitish silver that comes with the standard rose gold version. This one in yellow gold has that gorgeous warm écrou and a unique moon phase that shows almost almost a burgundy night sky with a gold moon. It's very beautiful, very subtle, and completely unique to this launch edition of 300 watches that came out at the Salon International in Geneva in 2010 with the debut of the model. It also features this awesome half-moon guilloche pattern. Not only does each reveal a separate power reserve indicator for the calendar and time-telling functions respectively, but you can see the main plate, you can see the blued screws of the movement, and that little moon motif on a moon phase watch is kind of a poetic, artistic addition. That guilloche, that métier d'art, really adds another element beyond the engineering. And in the same vein, this is a gorgeous, traditionally shaped, almost pocket watch era case form. Now you can see the soldered lugs, the alternately polished and brushed finish. There's a lot of artistry going on here. Almost, dare I say it, it's almost Lange-esque, like a Lange und Söhne of Saxony. It's a very vintage style that pays tribute to the watchmaking past of the manufacturer. And it's no coincidence that the back of this watch looks like a Lange, and it has that level of finish. We're talking about a black polished tip of the balance cock right here, holding the balance, emphasizing the paramount importance of that regulating organ and the function of this concept. And that black polish is a gorgeous highlight in a movement that's brimming with them. Like a Lange, you're looking at what's known as nickel-copper maillot in the French, or German silver if manufactured in Saxony. The whole movement is uncoated. It's not like the rhodium-plated brass of Geneva in its brilliant, but again, somewhat cold silver shine. This has a rich, almost golden hue to it that increases in intensity over time. German silver doesn't age in the sense that it corrodes. It's very corrosion resistant, more so than rhodium-plated brass. But it assumes a patina that enlivens it and exaggerates the Côte de Genève, in this case, the sunburst pattern, the engravings, and the polishings on the movement. It just becomes more pronounced and more beautiful with time. And you can see that radiant sunburst away from the regulating organ. Everything about this makes that balance wheel the focal point. It's exceptionally large, pocket watch style, and it's actually, I believe, one of the highest inertia balances made by any watchmaker in Switzerland today. So it's got a big, slow 3 Hertz beat that's basically 6 beats per second, just like the Foudroyant. But because of its mass, it resists shock. It resists that tendency to lose its timing due to sudden movements of the wrist. That's pocket watch style, to have a big balance. And it's also pocket watch style to have so much depth and so much revealing cutouts and channels between the bridges. This isn't a packed modern movement. It's spread out. It's got open real estate for you to examine and admire the perlage of the base plates and also the perlage between some of the bridge plates themselves. All of these gorgeous partridge eye, basically polished countersinks for the screws, for the jewels, for the pivots. They're artistic in their own right, and all of the beveling is by hand. Again, to that standard that's evocative of something like a Vacheron or a Lange. This is not just a beautifully designed movement, it's beautifully finished. And while it takes 3 days just to assemble this movement, it takes weeks to finish the individual components that go into it. Again, 50-hour power reserve, 2 mainspring barrels. You can see how they wind in different directions. The crown winds in both directions, but it winds a different function of the watch and a different powertrain in each direction. One barrel ratchets while the other turns. Now, it's very simple to use. You put it on your wrist, you start it up, you advance the date using this pusher right here, you advance the moon phase using this corrector here between the lugs at the top. This watch is user-friendly. It's iconic already. Not more than 8 years since the debut of the first Duometre, this watch is already a high horology favorite, a JLC icon, an example of arguably the best of modern haute de gamme finish in Switzerland today. Everything that makes a watch desirable is present here. Respect for tradition, innovation, watchmaking virtuosity, and gorgeous craftsmanship. Check out this Jaeger-LeCoultre Duometre Quantième Lunaire on our website, Watch You Want, with full boxes, papers, and factory accessories.